I caught my brother sleeping with my fiancée 14 hours before the wedding. My family told me to forgive him. I chose myself, disappeared for 5 years, built a new life. Then my mother called, begging me to come back because everything fell apart and they finally realized they chose the wrong son. The night before the wedding was supposed to feel magical. Instead, it felt like the beginning of a funeral nobody realized they were attending yet. My name is Alec Harmon. I was 29 years old, engaged to a woman named Darcy Shaw after 4 years together. The wedding was set for Saturday afternoon. Venue booked. Guests confirmed. Nearly $40,000 spent between both families. Everything was ready. My younger brother Porter was my best man. At the rehearsal dinner, he stood in front of everyone with a champagne glass in his hand and called me the best man he'd ever known. People clapped. My mother cried. Darcy squeezed my hand under the table. 6 hours later, I opened a bedroom door and found Porter in bed with her. I still remember the first thing I saw. Not them. The tux hanging behind the door. My tux. The one I was supposed to wear while marrying her the next afternoon. Nobody moved at first. Darcy pulled the blanket to her chest, like that would somehow undo what I had already seen. Porter looked like his soul had left his body. Then Darcy whispered my name. Just Alec, like she couldn't believe I was real. I stood there for a few seconds that somehow felt longer than the entire 4 years we'd spent together. Then I walked forward, took the tux off the hook, tucked it under my arm and left without saying a word. No screaming. No fight. No dramatic scene. Just silence. The kind that changes your life forever. I drove until sunrise. At some point, I stopped at a rest area almost 200 miles away and sat in the truck staring through the windshield while my phone exploded beside me. Calls from Darcy, calls from Porter, calls from my parents, texts begging me to answer. One message from my mother hit harder than all the others. Please don't cancel the wedding. We can figure this out as a family. As a family? That was the moment something inside me broke for good. Not when I saw Darcy with Porter. Not even when my brother betrayed me. It broke when my own mother treated my humiliation like an inconvenience everyone needed to move past before deposits were lost and guests got upset. By morning, I knew there would be no wedding. I called my groomsman Oakes and told him to pack my essentials from the apartment. Clothes, laptop, documents, toolbox. Nothing else mattered anymore. He found me in a cheap roadside motel later that afternoon. He looked around the tiny room and quietly asked, "What's the plan?" I stared at the stained motel wall for a long time before answering. "I disappear." And for the first time since opening that bedroom door, saying those words actually gave me peace. If you've ever had the people closest to you choose comfort over loyalty, subscribe. Because some betrayals don't destroy you. They introduce you to the person you were forced to become. 3 days later, I left the state. I withdrew my half of our joint savings account before Darcy could touch it, resigned from my job, loaded everything I owned into my truck, and drove west until the road started looking unfamiliar. Denver felt perfect for one reason. Nobody there knew me. Nobody knew about the wedding. Nobody knew about Porter. Nobody looked at me with pity. For the first month, I rented a tiny room in a crowded house with 4 strangers and worked construction for $22 an hour. That was less than half of what I used to make. Didn't matter. I wasn't trying to rebuild my career yet. I was trying to rebuild myself. Most nights I came home exhausted enough to sleep without thinking. That alone felt like progress, but my family refused to let go. My mother somehow got my number a few weeks after I moved. The second I heard her voice, I knew nothing had changed. Not really. She cried about Porter being destroyed. She said he missed his brother. Said he made one terrible mistake. One mistake. That phrase followed me everywhere like poison. Finally, I snapped. I told her a mistake was forgetting an anniversary or backing into a mailbox. Sleeping with your brother's fiancée the night before his wedding wasn't a mistake. It was a decision. A chain of decisions. And every single one of them led straight to betrayal. My father got on the phone after that. He asked me to come home so we could heal as a family. I remember laughing at that, not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. Families heal when they protect the wounded person, Mine protected the people who wounded me. I changed my number the next morning. After that, I stopped looking backward, and slowly life started answering me back. The construction company owner, Dwight, noticed I worked harder than everyone else on site. Within months, he promoted me to supervising crews. A few months after that, he offered me a chance to partner on a house flip. I invested nearly everything I had left. We renovated the place together and sold it for a profit big enough to change my future. For the first time since the wedding, I felt something besides anger. Momentum. Meanwhile, Oaks kept me updated on the disaster unfolding back home. Not because I asked, because some truths eventually find you anyway. Porter and Darcy officially got together only a few months after the wedding collapsed. My parents welcomed them with open arms. Sunday dinners, family photos. My mother even kept an empty chair at the table for me with flowers beside it, like I had died. Then came the next update. Darcy got pregnant, and when Oaks told me what they named the baby, I nearly threw my phone across the room. Owen, my grandfather's name, the same name I once told Darcy I wanted for my future son. That one hurt more than I expected, not because I still loved her. That part had already died. It hurt because betrayal keeps finding new ways to remind you it happened. Still, while their life kept spiraling emotionally, mine kept growing quietly. By year 2, I had launched my own company. By year 3, I bought my first house. Not rented, owned. Every wall in that house felt like proof that I survived. Then came Sloane. I met her during a charity build. Steel-toed boots, messy ponytail, hammer in her hand. She wasn't impressed by money or stories. She just looked at me like a man instead of a tragedy. On our third date, I finally told her everything. The wedding, the bedroom. The rest stopped. The years of silence. When I finished, she stayed quiet for a moment before saying something I still think about. "You didn't run away," she said. "You rebuilt." Nobody had ever called it that before. Not even me. And somehow hearing those words changed everything. Because she was right. I hadn't disappeared because I was weak. I disappeared because staying would have destroyed me. If you've ever had to leave behind people you love just to save yourself, subscribe. Because sometimes survival looks exactly like walking away. By year 4, my company crossed 7 figures in revenue. I had employees, contracts, a real future. And back home, everything was collapsing. Porter's restaurant failed in less than a year after my parents mortgaged their home to fund it. Darcy left him soon after. My father drained his retirement trying to clean up Porter's debts, and the son they defended at my expense slowly became the reason they were losing everything. That was when my mother finally called again, not to apologize, not really, to ask for help. And deep down, I think we both knew that conversation was going to change whatever remained of our family forever. My mother called on a Tuesday evening, while Sloane and I were painting the back deck. The second I heard her voice, I knew this wasn't about reconciliation. It was desperation. She told me the house was in foreclosure. My father had emptied his retirement savings, trying to save Porter's failed restaurant. Porter was 31 years old, still living under their roof, barely contributing while the bills swallowed everything around them. Then she finally said the words I never thought I'd hear. We chose wrong. I leaned against the porch railing and looked out at the mountains while she cried on the other end of the phone. 5 years earlier, I had stood alone in a rest stop parking lot with $8,000, a toolbox, and a family willing to excuse my destruction for the sake of keeping peace. Now the peace was gone anyway. And suddenly they remembered the son who knew how to fix things. She begged me to come home. Said Dad's health was failing. Said they needed me. But all I could think about was that night. The tux hanging on the bedroom door. My brother in her bed. My mother asking me not to throw everything away over one night. I told her the truth as calmly as I could. I already saved one life, I said. My own. After we hung up, Sloane came outside and sat beside me without asking questions. That silence meant more than every apology my family tried to offer. A few weeks later, my parents sold the house. Porter moved into a tiny apartment. Darcy was raising Owen alone. And me? I stayed in Denver. I kept building the life nobody believed I could have after losing everything. The tux still hangs in my closet. Not as a reminder of betrayal, as proof that the worst night of my life became the first night of the life I was actually meant to live. And if this story meant something to you, subscribe, because sometimes the people who break your heart are the same people who unknowingly set you free.